Great. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. I will start with just getting my slides all set up and then we will get started. Oh, sorry. Hang on. I gotta update a setting on my end. I got a new computer.
It's always when you're right in the middle of a call or starting a
I
Zoom. It's
know.
like, oh,
I'm
we
so
need to update
sorry.
this.
Yes. I'm so sorry. All right. It
You're
should
fine.
should be good now. Oops. All right. Is that looking good to everybody? Great.
Yep,
Thank
I can
you.
see it.
All right, so I want to be mindful of our time, but I do also want to wait just, maybe one more minute in case anyone else is joining. After that, we'll get started with our presentation. I do just want to invite people, and of course, I know since right now it's only two of you, it might feel a little vulnerable, but I would really love if people felt comfortable to have their camera on today, that you might make that choice. I know it can be hard sometimes, and like we've said, these groups really are about, sure, education, but also like community building. So it's kind of nice to be able to see each other and connect in that way. So just an offering if you're feeling comfortable. All right. So Savannah's going to keep the waiting room or eye on the waiting room, and I will get started. So, as we mentioned, the topic today is self-care for new parents. My name is Campbell Cahill. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also the Infant and Early Childhood Program Director at Ardent Grove Foundation. So, the primary focus of my therapy work that I provide is for pregnant and postpartum clients, as well as infants and young children. Kind of working with new parents and young children is really my specialty. So I'm always grateful for this opportunity to come and chat with all the new parents that are engaged with Yana. So this is our check-in today. This is kind of a cutesy way to figure out how overwhelmed we're feeling. This is, of course, not mine. The credit there on the bottom from Self Love Rainbow, just a nice little infographic that I found. I'd love if everyone could read through this and then identify maybe where they're at just right now or today and write in the chat which number they feel they're at. So one, of course, is kind of feeling relaxed and in control, where five, hopefully nobody here today is feeling five, but if you are, please feel free to share. Feeling like a state of crisis, like it's absolutely impossible to manage tasks or emotions, feeling yourself shutting down. I'd love to just kind of get a temperature check of the room. So after you've read through, just share in the chat and I'll keep my eye on it. Addison, thanks so much for sharing. Feeling one today. Glad to hear it. Two and two. All right. So nobody in those super high states. I'm glad to hear. Hopefully just the one or two level, it's feeling like some of these self-care strategies might help kind of manages those emotions. Sometimes we're in a five. Those self-care strategies feel like, how could this even help me? Even though sometimes they do. I think these strategies are usually helpful kind of around that three, four stage. So awesome. Okay, thanks everybody. I really appreciate the participation. And Cora, just I think you weren't in the room when I shared this. I would love to offer if people felt comfortable to turn their camera on. It's a great way for us to feel a little more connected. Like this is like a collaboration that we're in community together, in a conversation rather than just like a presentation. But of course, I understand people might not have been ready for that. So just an offering. All right. So that was our check-in. I'm glad that we were able to get that started. Oh, and I see maybe one or two other people have joined as well. If you can please put in the chat which number of overwhelm you might be feeling today. You can read through these options and let us know where you're at. Okay, feeling three, kind of moderate. Thanks for sharing. And I think Madison made a great point that it's like just today, right? It might have been yesterday, could have been feeling four. Suddenly, just for some reason, today is feeling one. Our level of overwhelm can change, minute to minute, let alone day to day. So it's great to have some of these coping strategies that feel really quick and easy to access. When we're noticing those feelings of overwhelm, we can put them into action. Okay. Oh, thanks, Savannah, for sharing too. All right. So we'll move to our next slide. So, the concept that I want to focus a little bit on today is the idea of micro self-care. So, this is like called self-care for new parents, but we're really going to focus on micro self-care. Micro self-care, of course, right, is like really tiny, simple, quick practices that promote well-being without requiring significant time, resources, or planning. Of course, for new parents, might not feel like there is a lot of time or resources or ability to plan. And so we need something else. We need something simpler. Hopefully, some of these strategies feel like things you can do even while you're holding your baby, right? That they're really not too challenging or too hard to access or even too hard to remember, right? We might sometimes learn about a coping skill. Then when we need it a week later, we're like, wait, what was that breathing technique I saw online? Hopefully these things all feel like maybe kind of like obvious, right? But in a way that are like is like a good reminder that like, oh, that's a quick, easy thing to access. So we'll get into a little more kind of ideas around micro self-care. So we might think of self-care as something more time consuming, such as like taking a bath, going to an exercise class, getting a massage, right? Like relaxing for the whole evening, spending the weekend away. Like we can all totally see and agree that for most people, those things take a lot of resources and planning and time. And although, of course, they would be great, it's not always realistic for new parents to be able to engage in all of those things every single week or month, for instance. So we want to make sure that, especially for new parents, we have things that feel attainable and that can maybe replace, right? If you were someone who, before having a child, you might have been always getting massages or always going to exercise classes, and it feels like that coping skill was kind of taken away from you, at least at this point or this stage in life, we want to have other skills to replace it. It might not be as long, right? A whole hour of workout class, for instance, but there are many other things we can do to intentionally care for ourselves in these small moments. All right. I always just like to pause for a second and see like if people did have cameras on or if there are questions in the chat. So you'll see me kind of just taking a break every couple of slides. So I added here, this is of course not an exhaustive list. These are just things that I like to do that I find are beneficial for my clients, right? As we talk about them in our therapy sessions, these are things that, again, like I said, although they might seem small, they might seem like obvious, they also can be really impactful. Um, I want to start here, actually. I should have just put this one as first, right? But the benefit I think around all of these is engaging our senses, is having that intentional mindset around I'm doing this for self-care. I'm doing this to engage my senses because, here down here, it's something like lighting a candle, just lighting a candle quick, no big deal. That might not actually be self-care, right? But taking that time to light the candle, noticing how it smells, noticing the way maybe it changed the lighting in the room, noticing maybe just a sense of peace and calm that might have come over you just in that 1 second. That's the way that the self-care activity actually becomes, a way to care for yourself. So some of these things, right? Like drinking a glass of water, for instance, it's something we have to do anyways, right? We probably, sometimes we forget, but we probably do that quite often. However, if we do it in a way that really engages our senses, that's what like levels it up to be actually like one of these micro self-care exercises. So this is, like I said, not an exhaustive list. After we go through these, I do want to hear some of your ideas as well. So maybe start thinking about something you do or something you want to do. And we'll chat about that in just 1 second. So, neck and jaw relaxation, this is something that we hold so much tension in our necks and jaws, right? So, I'm thinking about lots of activities, like I said, where we can be holding baby and still do something. So, holding baby, right? But stretching really intentionally, noticing the stretch there on your neck, the other side, right? Maybe opening and closing your jaw a few times. Even if people are familiar with yoga, there's this idea called lion's breath, where we kind of stick out our tongue like that really stretches our jaw and kind of our mouth and just can feel really relaxing after we stretch and then come back to a little more kind of grounded place. Something like, swinging your head in a circle, just noticing the way that that neck and jaw relaxation, especially when we're like engaging our senses by really noticing how it feels, can maybe take 10 or 20 seconds, but can actually really have an impact for us. Reaching out to a loved one, of course, this is again pretty simple, right? But maybe even like sending a text to a friend, like, feeling so stressed today. Like sometimes that can feel really nice to just know that somebody's there supporting you, listening to you. Or it could be um, like the opposite of reaching out in a stressful way, like noticing like maybe you're feeling really grateful for something that someone in your village did for you during this time and just reaching out and sending that text like so grateful for your support that can feel really nice to kind of give that gratitude back to someone in your circle. Change your scenery. I think this one is, something that a lot of new parents think about, but maybe it's literally moving from one room to another. Maybe it's stepping outside if you have access to that, in your home. Maybe it's going like to the library or going for a drive, something like that can be really impactful to just kind of like shake up our mind, right? Give us a chance to do something that feels good for us, especially if it's something where we can get some fresh air. Mindful minute. This is something that we're going to practice here today. I want to make sure we get a chance to actually like practice one of these things. So that's something we'll get to in a little. I'll dive into it deeper on the next slide. Deep breathing, again, like some of these are very obvious, but I think that we can sometimes forget that these do have, scientific benefits as well, right? Like breathing really is the number one way for us to regulate our nervous system. I know that sometimes breathing can feel tricky for some people, so I get that. If it's not the skill for you, that's totally okay. But most of the science shows us, right, that it really is kind of the number one strategy for helping us regulate. Some people like to do a breath called box breathing, where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, inhale for 4 seconds. So you're kind of making this box and you're just remembering four, four, four. So that could be something to try too. I know sometimes people like watch these later, right? They're recorded and people are rewatching. So it could be something to like just pause and try that right now. And we're going to do a mindfulness exercise next, like I said. Drinking a full glass of water, sometimes, again, like I said, we might forget how important this is to us, but just, maybe you're holding baby or baby's down for a nap and you just go fill up a whole glass and just chug it all at once, right? And the way that that can kind of shake us up, right? Engaging our senses, changing our scenery, or changing our state can feel really nice. Stepping outside for fresh air, standing in a sunny window. Sometimes we don't want to go outside in the cold, but letting the sun hit our face can be these micro moments of self-care. Again, a lot of these on this side are all like kind of within a similar realm. So gentle stretching, kind of the same as neck and jaw relaxation. Maybe that's stretching your legs or stretching your arms, something kind of like this, like this. those little things to just change our state, change our mind, change our body around a little bit can sometimes help us ground back down into that present moment if we're noticing those feelings of overwhelm really creeping in. This one, just for me personally, listening to a favorite song or dancing to a favorite song, it sometimes can be uncomfortable or a little weird to do that. But it also is so much fun to just kind of let things loose or to feel, those special vibes from whatever your favorite song might be. Positive affirmations or positive self-talk. Again, this is something that for some people it can feel really challenging, but for some people it can really be the impact that we need. Reminding yourself, I am strong, I can handle this, I'm worthy, whatever affirmation might feel best for you. Sometimes repeating that, especially if we're looking at ourselves in the mirror, maybe with baby too, right? Saying like, we're strong, we can handle this. I could see that being so beneficial and kind of like just a warm moment for you and for baby. Jumping up and down 20 times. Again, this is something that like maybe 20 feels too much or not enough, but changing our state, right? This is what we can notice the theme between all of these ideas. Doing something that kind of changes up our body or changes up our mind are these ways that we can show ourselves these little bits of self-care, shake us out of a feeling of overwhelm or anxiety. And then, like I said, lighting a candle, something where we can't just do it quick and oh, it's done. I did my self-care, but it's noticing the smell, noticing the light, using our mindfulness, using our senses to just notice. So, like I said, these were some of my ideas or things that I know that I try to work with my clients on. I'd love if people could write in the chat again, or of course, if you want to unmute and share, I would love that also. Write in the chat something that you do or that you might want to do that isn't on this list. So we just get a few extra ideas to share with each other as well. Go on a walk. Yes, absolutely. Taylor, thanks so much for sharing. And I think too, right? Like just to remind people, like walk could literally mean like around the block. Like it might not have to be like an hour long walk. If it's something that, an hour is feeling like too much, 5 minutes just around the block can still be so beneficial. Setting a timer for 15 minutes and play fetch with my dog. While I wait for her to run back and forth, I stretch. That's such an awesome idea. And exactly, just 15 minutes. Like we have to remind ourselves, like it doesn't have to be the whole hour. It doesn't have to be super long time. 15 minutes of self-care, time to connect with your pet. Our pets are can be so special to us. So absolutely. And adding the stretching into, you've got like double there. Taking a shower, Madison, yes, that is like such an underrated one, right? I should have put that here too. Just allowing ourselves that space and time, allowing that water to like rush over us can feel so warming, so comfortable. Some people even like to visualize that like the water is like washing away our worries or our overwhelm. So there's a lot of ways to make a shower feel like even more special than it already does. Savannah, great idea, breaking up a to-do list with reading or listening to a chapter of a book. Yes. So, like, if you're feeling, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff to do, finding a way to take a break and reading or listening to a chapter of a book. I love the audiobook idea. It's so easy to just like, yep, turn it on, give yourself that time to just listen and float into another world, whatever world you're in your book. Another great idea, shower with a shower steamer and body scrub makes it so nice. So just, those few little extra products or a few little extra things that you might add to your shower can make it like even more luxurious, even more self-care. Awesome. And exactly, right? Like a shower can be 5 minutes, it can be 20 minutes, however long you have, right? Giving yourself that time, even if it's micro is so, so important. And we can see that not only is the shower nice, but probably maybe the hour after we get out, right? We feel like a little more grounded, a little more comfortable because we gave ourselves that time. Awesome. Anyone else have any other ideas to share? I hope that we all feel like we're kind of sharing with each other, right? I've got my list, but you all had some amazing ideas as well that hopefully people take. take with them for micro self-care moments. Okay, great. So, like I said, now we're gonna practice. So, again, I know that like most people have their camera off. That's totally okay. I'm just gonna trust that you're doing it as I guide you through it. So, we're gonna do an activity that's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A lot of people know about this activity. You might see it online. Maybe you heard about it from your own therapy. It's a really effective mindfulness strategy for grounding down, right? If we're feeling really overwhelmed, really anxious, we're kind of getting, right? We use these hand motions like, I'm just so overwhelmed. We want to find a way to ground ourselves down, feeling a little more calm, feeling a little more present, feeling a little bit more able to handle all that we've got to face. So, mindfulness is simply just using our five senses. Some people think that, like, oh, when we do mindfulness or meditation, we have to like clear our mind. That's not totally true. What we really need to do is just engage our senses, which, as you saw, was something I kind of included on our self-care list as well. So, our five senses are our sight, our hearing, our smell, our taste, and touch. So, touch can be like our hands, but like our whole body also. So, what we do with this is we utilize each sense. We kind of have a different number of items we look for within each sense. And then by the end, we've engaged all of our senses. So, first, we start with five things we can touch. So, I want everybody, like I said, to try to actually do this right now. So, I'll say mine out loud. While you guys are figuring out yours in whatever space you are. So something I can touch is I have kind of a fuzzy blanket over here. I could touch my own hair and just kind of feel that feels like. I could touch, I have like a little fidget toy here, kind of like squishy that I can touch. I can touch my laptop is a little bit like cold and smooth. And I can touch, here I've got my water. Oh, also really cold, so it's right by the window, cold and smooth as well. Okay, so I noticed my sense of touch. The next thing we're going to do is four things we can see. So looking around, what are four things we see around us? I see, I have a stack of books here that I keep by my desk. I can see a candle that I keep by my desk. Out the window, I can see some trees. I can see the sky. And those are four things that I can see. So I engaged my sense of sight in the room that I'm in and kind of the environment I'm in. Next is going to be three things we can hear. So I'm going to actually be quiet for this one to listen to what I can hear around me. Okay, I got three things. I could hear my heater running, just kind of a quiet hum. I could hear a car driving by outside, and actually could hear my stomach was kind of making a weird noise. So that was something I heard also. All right. So we've done our sense of touch, we've done our sight, we've done hearing. What we have left is smell and taste. So two things to smell and one thing to taste. So two things to smell. Usually a pretty easy one is clothes, right? It may smell like laundry or smell like something you might be wearing, lotion or perfume or something. So I could smell my shirt. And let's see what else to smell. This one's sometimes hard. Oh, I have a lotion here by my desk. I'm going to smell it. Okay. So as we continue to engage our senses, we might notice like maybe we are feeling a little more present, feeling just like we're really focusing on the now. We're finding all these things rather than thinking about our to-do list. And it does sometimes take practice. So if this is the first time you've ever tried something like this, I would encourage you to keep practicing it if it's feeling a little tricky today, because stuff usually feels tricky the first time we do it. The last one is our sense of taste. So this one is sometimes the hardest. Of course, if you have something around you to drink or eat, that's a great way to get it. this is a little bit weird, but another great way is just to kind of notice like the taste of your mouth, like what your spit tastes like. Maybe it tastes like something you ate or drank earlier, or maybe it tastes like nothing. So I have my water here, so I'll just take a sip and just kind of notice what that tastes like. So we've gone through our mindfulness exercise. I think I didn't time it, but I think it probably only took about 2 minutes. I'm curious if people can write again in the chat, or if you want to unmute, please feel free to just share how that was for them. Like, and please, if it felt like hard or weird, like I'd love to hear that too. Or maybe just write about how you might be feeling now after practicing that for just those 2 minutes. Yeah, Savannah, thanks so much for sharing. Like, an easy way to just check in with yourself, right? Check in with your environment. Like, I'm here. I'm hopefully, right, in a place that feels like safe and comfortable.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Hearing was weirdly quiet, almost like don't wake the sleeping baby. So Taylor noticing like, whoa, it was so quiet. And so maybe that's something, right? You're like, oh, okay, I couldn't quite hear that much in my environment, but that's okay. Move on to the next one, right? Like that's why we use all five. Maybe one doesn't quite work or feels harder. Thanks so much for sharing. A chance to just check in, a chance to just let our mind go a little bit, slower or just focus on like one thing at a time rather than we're always focusing on millions of things, our to-do list, our tasks, taking care of everyone else, and giving that time to just care for ourselves and our brain and our body, just kind of drop back into the present moment. Anyone else have anything to share, feedback, or kind of how that made you feel? All right. Thank you so much for those who shared. So, the next thing that I want to give us a little bit of time to talk about is co-regulation. I think this is a really important thing to share with parents. Parents, and I think like again, as Savannah said at the beginning, like it's so easy to put everyone else's needs above your own. And in some way, that it makes sense that we do have this little fragile little baby. We want to make sure we're caring for it. But this is some scientific evidence that shows us that caring for ourselves is actually inadvertently caring for your child, right? So that instead of just, oh, I have to make sure that baby's okay and I'll put all my needs aside, when parents learn about this, it actually helps us hopefully reframe our mind a little to say, okay, when I care for myself, I actually am caring for my family or my baby. And so hopefully that gives us like even more motivation to engage in some of these self-care activities like we talked about today. So, just curious, like maybe you could put a thumbs up in the chat if you do know about co-regulation. Just kind of wondering like where we're all at. Who knows about this phenomenon or this idea? Okay, yeah. So some people know a little, but good. So we'll get to learn more. We'll get to learn about how caring for ourselves actually does help us care for our baby. And then again, it gives us like more motivation to like, okay, then let's do it, right? Let's make time for that. So awesome. What is co-regulation? So, co-regulation is the process of a caregiver assisting a child in emotionally regulating. So, this is actually a little bit simplified. Co-regulation exists very, very commonly and definitely most often in like a parent-child dynamic, but it actually exists in a lot of relationships, right? We might notice this like with our partner, for instance, or even just with like a close friend. It's just the way that like somebody else being calm and grounded can help us kind of match them, right? Feeling calm and grounded. If you're, for instance, like you're feeling really upset and your partner is just like so supportive and helpful and calm and cool, it might help you be like, okay, I can I can start to be calm and cool about this too, right? That like the idea is that we want often as humans kind of just biologically like to feel matched with the people around us. Like we want to feel like we're on the same page. And so especially like for infants, right, wanting to feel on the same page as their caregivers. So if the infant is really dysregulated, right, really heightened, really upset, and the caregiver is able to stay calm and grounded, the infant wants to come down and match, right? Whereas if the infant is really dysregulated and the caregiver is really dysregulated, subconsciously, of course, it's not actually a real thought, but the infant might be like, oh, well, we're matched, so we're fine, right? We can stay up here. And that can be really tough, of course, right? I know that you all know that. So, co-regulation teaches children how to self-soothe as they get older. This takes time and practice to master. And sometimes we as adults can even struggle with self-regulation, right? And self-soothing. So, this is the idea, right? That like children learn to self-regulate and self-soothe by first being co-regulated with, by their parent co-regulating with them. It eventually teaches children, like, okay, now I can start to do this on my own. So, this is a fun fact. Did you know that children actually need help regulating their emotions through adolescence? So, sometimes we think, oh, a 5-year-old, yeah, they can self-regulate. But it actually isn't true. The science, this is a study that was done from Duke University Center for Child and Family Policy from 2017. So, almost about 10 years old, if you can even believe it. But still pretty good data to show that this is caregiver co-regulation coming down, like how much the caregiver has to support. And then this is the child, right? Like getting eventually to just doing it all on their own in young adulthood. So we can see obviously infants and toddlers need so much parent regulation and only just have little bits of their own regulation. From toddler to preschool age, there's a big jump, which is why they have this circled in red, that parents might notice, like, whoa, they need me a lot less. But it doesn't mean that they're not needed at all. And then, of course, in adolescence, there's another big jump that it still kind of feels like, oh, maybe they've got it. They learn to self-regulate. But this science shows us like still a little bit needed from parents, eventually to, full adulthood. People are really able to self-regulate. So you might notice this if you have like older children also. You might see where they're at on this scale. But of course, you might remember like from your experience as a young adult, maybe there was a time when you felt like, oh yeah, I finally feel like I'm able to self-regulate. Maybe in your 20s or something. I definitely can think of times when I noticed that for myself as well. So, like I said, this is just like a little extra info that hopefully helps us motivates us to engage in those self-care moments because the first step of co-regulation is always for the adults, the caregiver, to acknowledge and regulate their own emotions first. So, in order to provide co-regulation, the grown up or the kind of the one with like the stronger nervous system is sometimes how we say it needs to find a way to regulate themselves. So, again, like I said, using these micro self-care strategies, like the ones we've talked about or the ones you all gave in the chat, are awesome ways to start practicing co-regulation. That by keeping yourself regulated, by giving yourself that self-care, you actually are taking this first step in supporting your child. And once you're regulated, it's much easier to support your dysregulated child. I'm sure that everybody can think of an instance where this happened for them, right? Maybe you're just having a good day and your baby cries a lot and it feels really easy to soothe them, right? You're just like, I'm good. I've got this," right? Maybe you were engaging in some self-care yourself, or maybe just kind of keeping yourself regulated and it felt, a little bit more manageable. And that's co-regulation. You were feeling regulated, your baby got a little dysregulated and came down and matched you. We can also, I'm sure, all think of the opposite, which is a day when you were already overwhelmed, so much was going on, you definitely got dysregulated, baby starts crying, and it feels so hard to help baby soothe because, again, we're kind of in that matched state. Whereas taking some deep breaths or doing, any of those activities is a way to get down the first step to then helping baby or child come down. Could even be your teen, right? Like like I said, this isn't actually just about infants. This is something that is needed in families kind of throughout a child's development. So this is, again, like I said, a little bit of science or evidence-based info to hopefully continue to encourage and support the idea that like we need self-care because we need to be able also to teach our children self-care. The first way to do that is by the caregiver doing it themselves. All right. So we've got some time for a question and answer. Again, I'd love if anybody wants to come off mute and share your question, please feel free to do that or write it in the chat and I'll keep my eye on the chat. Questions, of course, about co-regulation, questions about any of the self-care things we talked about earlier. Happy to answer.
Yeah, I have a question. For so I feel like with one, sorry, baby here. Um, for one, I thought it was a lot easier to co-regulate, and then I'm on my second now, and that has been really tough being with like a toddler and then and tending to the baby because they're kind of on different levels of like stress or something at that moment. And it's been harder to co-regulate in that because the toddler is just like everywhere and difficult. So do you have any recommendations on like how to do that with two?
Yeah.
When maybe like the timing is it's like it's just harder to stop and say like, hey, it would be helpful if you co-regulated here, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just want to name that, like, you're right. It does get harder, like, every time, right? This process of co-regulation that I was talking about really was just like with two, right? Like baby and caregiver, or like I said, even like two partners. Like, you're right. It is fairly easier to do that. And then when there's this other third person, right? Your toddler, or maybe the baby is the third person, like it can feel really tricky. So I just want to name that, like, you are so right that it does get harder, like each level. I think that something that can sometimes be helpful is making space to have that like individual time, right? Because I think that that is something that does like fill up the cup. So toddler, right? Maybe wanting like a little extra time with you and finding ways, if of course, like not everybody has the capacity to do that, which I totally understand, but filling up each of your children's cups so that when then you do need to attend to one, they've got that feeling of like, yeah, well, I spent my time with mom earlier today. And I know it's not always that simple, but that is definitely something to consider. I wonder too if there's a way to like engage in some of this together, right? That like, okay, we're gonna go outside today, right? In a way that is more incorporating like that mindfulness, or oh, we're all gonna, I don't, you might not want to light a candle with your toddler, right? But some of those things, we're all gonna do stretching, we're all gonna do lighting a candle, we're all gonna dance to our favorite song. That might be a way to incorporate some co-regulation and self-care like all at once. Who else has questions or maybe just even thoughts to share? I'd love to just hear thoughts people are having about the info so far. Oh, thanks, Madison. Anyone thinking about any questions or any ideas they might want to share? Oops, sorry, I swiped to the next slide. Taylor says, currently putting this into practice with my little one. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Okay, so our checkout, I would love for everyone to just share in the chat, or again, if you want to unmute, please feel free. Just one takeaway, something you might take away. One, maybe it's one of the coping skills that you're like, oh, I didn't think of that, or something regarding co-regulation. Um, I'd love everyone to just share something that they might be taking away or putting into practice, later today or this week or something. The micro self-care tips. Yeah. So some of those ideas kind of felt right for you, felt like something you could probably incorporate. I'm glad to hear it. Oh yeah, so thinking about the idea that co-regulation is needed through young adulthood, like a lot of people are not aware of that. And so it is something that can sometimes help us, especially with like if you've got older kids or something to keep in mind as your child grows. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. Yay. Glad that that felt good. Yeah, right. Like Savannah saying, like, I always forget about that. So sometimes we know these coping skills, but like they're not there in our mind, like so easy to access. So sometimes it can be helpful just like to get these refreshers. Cora, box breathing. Yeah, so breathing in for 4, holding, out for 4, holding. Just kind of sometimes people even do it just using their finger like this in the air while they're breathing. Can feel like a really effective strategy just to regulate ourselves. Thank you for sharing. There's a few other people I'd love to just hear from in the chat around takeaways. I'll give some more time as I just move to the next slide, which is just a little bit about Ardent Grove. So, like I mentioned, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, the infant and early childhood program director, and I'm a therapist that works with pregnant and postpartum people as well as kids and families at Ardent Grove. So, we're a nonprofit mental health clinic. We're located in Cherry Creek, but of course, we offer virtual services as well. We offer low cost and Medicaid therapy, assessment, and community education. So this is how we got connected with Yana. We do these, kind of community education events, but we also provide therapy and assessment services. So we accept Medicaid, we accept United, Aetna, and then we essentially offer like a pay what you can for sliding scale. So we're aware that finances are often a big barrier for mental health treatment for a lot of people. And we work really, really hard to make sure that that isn't the case for clients that are coming to seek services at Ardent Grove. So, like I said, Medicaid, United, Aetna, or if it's private pay, we essentially offer like a pay what you can model. Our website is here, ardentgrove.org, or you can scan this QR code, which takes you to our website as well. If anybody, one of you or anyone you know might be looking for therapy or kind of feeling ready to take that next step, we'd love to be considered. We do have a few different therapists who specialize in pregnancy and postpartum as well. So it's not just me, it's a few of us that really have this niche and this desire to support this population. So I thank you guys so much for taking time to engage in some of these self-care activities with me, learn a little bit about co-regulation. And yeah, I do these webinars kind of like quarterly. So I'd love to hear if people have ideas for like future webinars, topics that they would want to learn about. Again, feel free to write that in the chat, and I'll take it into consideration for the future too. Thank you.